Well, 5 to 10 years ago, and historically for the last 20, 30 years, our band was facing 60 to 68% unemployment. And our biggest issue back then was how to reduce the welfare list. We're no longer talking about that. We estimate our welfare list is maybe down to 10%. And anybody that really wants to work in our territory can now get a job. In fact, I can't remember the last time when you could quit the job that you're working today and you could go work for another job, for another company. That's the difference between now and 5 years ago. Well, it's basically accepting to negotiate with companies that want to come in and do business in our territory. And it's using case law principles to get them to our table, along with government. But it's the industry and their proposed development actually brings the jobs and the training opportunities. It's not really us. We help subsidize where we can. We bring in specific training programs when we can. But it's really the industry that actually provides all the jobs. There's a lot of different reasons. But if you're going to get into this type of industry or any type of initiative, really highly recommend you do your homework on the qualities and the nature and the characteristics of the product you're talking about. For us, natural gas, we actually looked at the safety record of transporting natural gas versus the transportation of crude oil and the risk around it either exploding or catching fire, which is minimal because the conditions have to be perfect. But it's also more about natural gas being a cleaner energy than anything else that's out there. And I'm including diesel, crude oil, kerosene. And overall, like our people have been using natural gas since the 1980s. But when you go look at China, for example, they're living off nuclear, crude oil, diesel, anything coal, anything they can get their hands on to provide energy, and that's providing a ton of emissions. We talk about emissions in Canada. We have no idea what emissions actually looks like on the ground until you go look at China. And they're looking for a way out just like anybody else. How do they get away from dirty fuel? And how do we move into cleaner fuel? And I don't think clean energy right now is defined. It's not really ready to fill up that need. Well, it's really dependent on the political will and as well as the will of the people on how you want to balance it, to what degree. For us, we make it, the administrative body actually looks at addressing what would be the council's concerns in terms of protecting the environment. And that's the kind of message we get is from our people in terms of what to protect and what not to protect and what are they willing to forego. Well, it's mainly the product. And if this band is anything like our band, they confuse crude oil and natural gas. They think it's the same thing, and it's not. It's not the same thing. In fact, for my band, we have natural gas piped into our community. The only instance we can remember a natural gas pipeline rupturing was because of our own people. They dug where they shouldn't have dug, and that leaked into the atmosphere for about 20 minutes. It had nothing to do with the company. It had nothing to do with the pipeline itself. It was because of our mistake. And I think the other issue is how it affects the way of life. For natural gas pipelines, it's not unless it's pointed out or unless there's a sign or saying there's a natural gas pipeline. Very few people know these pipelines exist because they're underground, they're revegetated. I know I'm not supposed to, but I cross some of the pipeline right-of-ways when I go hunting. Just because I just don't know they're there. I really doubt a bullet would go through 4 feet of ground and rupture a pipeline. I really think that our biggest issue right now politically when it comes to right-of-ways affecting our way of life, I really don't appreciate hydro lines disallowing me to go onto right-of-ways for BC Hydro Hunt, for instance, or build something on that right-of-way. Whereas natural gas pipelines are more less obvious than say, a hydro pipeline. I think that's what the real concern is, that it's going to actually affect the way of life. It does to a certain extent, but it's not going to actually 100% limit your way of life. Well, I've heard a lot about the way of life and emissions and right-of-ways and how to deal with the government. And we do the same thing and above and beyond that. But at the end of the day, you know, we're looking for a future. We have no future under the Indian Act. We have no future in treaty negotiations, but our people still deserve a job. They still deserve a house, a mortgage, the truck, the quality of life that they want. And if they want to be independent, then you're not going to get it under the Indian Act. You're just not going to get it. And your council's hands are tied under the Indian Act as it is. So if you're really looking for a future for your people, then there's no project on the books that's going to come in and give you 100% of what you want in terms of environmental stewardship or return. But it's all going to be based on what your people want and what do you think your people deserve. And that's why we're looking at natural gas. It's the safest yet, and it actually promises what Canada and BC couldn't deliver in the last 40, 50 years.